Picture this. You're standing in front of the Great Pyramids in Egypt. This massive structure contains 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2.5 and 15 tons. It was built over 4,500 years ago by coordinating the work of thousands of people: stonecutters, transporters, engineers, food preparers, and supervisors. Someone had to figure out how to get all these people working together toward a common goal. Someone had to manage this project. That someone was practicing management, even though the word manager wouldn't exist for thousands more years. Today, we're going to trace the fascinating story of how management evolved from organizing pyramid construction in ancient Egypt to running modern corporations like Apple, Google, and Amazon. Why should you care about this history? Because understanding where management came from helps you understand where it's going. And whether you become a manager yourself or work for one, these historical lessons will help you navigate the modern workplace more effectively. Management didn't just appear when the first corporation was founded. It's been around as long as humans have tried to accomplish big things together. Let me take you on a journey through the ancient world. Our story begins around 3500 BC with the Sumerians in what's now Iraq. They created the first urban civilization, and when it came with it, the first businesses. They developed writing, not for poetry or love letters, but to keep track of trade transactions. Someone had to manage all those records and coordinate who owed what to whom. Jump forward to ancient Babylon, where King Hammurabi created one of the first management handbooks around 1750 BC. His famous code contained 282 laws, including some of the first rules about business dealings and employee wages. Law 104 essentially created the first accounting rules for managers and owners. Another Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, figured out incentive pay. Weavers who produced more cloth got more food. But perhaps the most impressive ancient managers were the Egyptians. Building the pyramids required dividing complex work into specialized tasks. Some workers cut stone, others transported it, others applied grease to reduce friction. The Egyptians discovered that the ideal span of control was about 10 workers per supervisor, a number that management experts still debate today. In ancient China, they developed the world's first merit-based bureaucracy during the Han Dynasty. Instead of giving jobs to friends and family, they gave them to people who passed tests based on Confucian teachings. Imagine if your boss had to pass a test to get their job. Fast forward to the 1760s when everything changed. Before the Industrial Revolution, most work was done at home by families. If you were a farmer, your family grew food primarily for your own consumption. If you were a craftsperson, you made goods in your home workshop, maybe with the help of a few apprentices. Then came the Industrial Revolution, and suddenly we had factories employing hundreds or thousands of workers. The McCormick plant in Chicago went from 123 workers in 1849 to 800 workers by the 1870s, producing thousands of farming machines each year. Henry Ford's plant eventually employed 12,000 people. This created completely new problems. How do you coordinate 800 people doing different jobs? How do you ensure quality when workers are doing repetitive tasks instead of crafting complete products? How do you motivate employees who don't directly benefit from the company's success like family members did? Workers and management were in constant conflict. Workers feared that if they produced too much, management would eliminate jobs because they believed there was only a finite amount of work in the world. So they practiced soldiering, deliberately limiting their productivity. Management often responded with physical punishment and arbitrary rules. It was a disaster. Something had to change, and that something was the birth of modern management theory. Enter Frederick Winslow Taylor, a man who would transform how we think about work. Born into a wealthy Quaker family in 1856, Taylor was supposed to go to Harvard and become a lawyer. Instead, an eye injury forced him to take a job at a steel company, where he witnessed the chaos and conflict between workers and management firsthand. Taylor's revolutionary idea was simple but powerful. Instead of managing based on tradition, gut feelings, or power struggles, why not use science? He took out a stopwatch and began timing workers to find the most efficient way to perform each task. For example, when Taylor studied men shoveling coal, he discovered they were using different techniques and different sized shovels. Through careful observation and timing, he determined the optimal shovel size and the most efficient shoveling technique. The result? Workers could move much more coal with less effort. Taylor wasn't just making workers work harder, he was making them work smarter. He gave workers regular rest breaks, which actually increased productivity because tired workers make more mistakes and move more slowly. Think about this the next time you're studying for finals. Taking breaks actually makes you more productive, not less. Taylor's approach can be summarized in 4 principles that still influence management today. First, develop a science for each element of work. Instead of letting workers figure out their own methods, study the work scientifically to find the best way. This is why McDonald's has specific procedures for making fries. It's not micromanaging, it's ensuring consistency and efficiency. Second, scientifically select and train workers. Before Taylor, hiring was often based on who you knew or random chance. Taylor said to study what makes workers successful at specific tasks and then hire accordingly. This is the foundation of modern human resources. Third, management and workers should cooperate. Instead of being adversaries, they should work together toward common goals. This might seem obvious now, but it was revolutionary in Taylor's time when the relationship was typically hostile. Fourth, divide work and responsibility equally between management and workers. Managers should handle planning and organizing, while workers should focus on execution. Each side has responsibilities to fulfill. Taylor's ideas reached their peak with Henry Ford's assembly line. Ford applied scientific management principles to automobile manufacturing, creating a system where each worker performed one specialized task as cars moved past them on a conveyor belt. The results were staggering. The price of a Model T Ford dropped from $850 in 1908 to just $290 in 1924, making cars affordable for average American families for the first time. Ford could also afford to pay workers $5 per day, double the typical wage at the time. But there was a trade-off. Work became incredibly repetitive and boring. Workers complained about the monotony and turnover was high. This tension between efficiency and worker satisfaction would become a central challenge in management theory. This same tension exists today. Think about customer service call centers with strict scripts, or warehouse workers whose movements are tracked by computers. The question remains, how do you balance efficiency with human dignity and job satisfaction? While Taylor was focused on making individual workers more efficient, a French mining executive named Henri Fayol was thinking about management from a different angle. Instead of looking at workers, he studied what top executives should do to run organizations effectively. Fayol introduced 3 crucial concepts that we still use today. First was unity of command. Each employee should have only one boss. This might seem obvious, but under Taylor's system, a single worker might receive orders from 8 different supervisors, each focusing on a different aspect of the job. The confusion was enormous. Second, Fayol emphasized esprit de corps, building team spirit and organizational pride. He recognized that people don't just work for money, they want to feel part of something meaningful. This is why companies today spend so much effort on corporate culture and team building. Third, Fayol stressed fairness and justice in organizational decisions. He believed managers should make decisions based on consistent principles, not favoritism or personal bias. Fayol created the first comprehensive list of what managers should do: plan, organize, command, coordinate, and control. These 5 functions, slightly modified, are still taught in business schools today. Around the same time, German sociologist Max Weber was developing ideas about bureaucracy. Now, when you hear bureaucracy, you probably think of frustrating government red tape. But Weber's bureaucracy was actually designed to be fair and efficient. Before Weber, most organizations were run based on personal relationships, tradition, or the whims of whoever was in charge. If you wanted a job, it helped to be the boss's nephew. Decisions were made arbitrarily, and workers never knew what to expect. Weber proposed a different system: hire people based on their qualifications, not their family connections. Make decisions based on consistent rules, not personal feelings. Create clear job descriptions and hierarchies so everyone knows their role and responsibilities. This system was revolutionary because it reduced favoritism and arbitrary decision-making. However, it also created new problems. Rules could become more important than results. People could hide behind procedures to avoid taking responsibility. Bureaucracy could become rigid and slow to adapt. Does this sound familiar? Every time you've been frustrated by having to fill out forms in triplicate or being told that's not my department, you're experiencing the dark side of Weber's bureaucratic system. By the 1920s, scientific management was widely adopted, but new questions were emerging. Researchers at Western Electric's Hawthorne plant near Chicago set out to study how physical working conditions affected productivity. They started with a simple question: does better lighting make workers more productive? What happened next became one of the most famous experiments in management history. The researchers changed the lighting levels for a group of workers, and as expected, productivity increased. But then something very strange happened. When they dimmed the lights back down, productivity increased again. In fact, productivity seemed to increase no matter what they changed. The researchers were baffled. How could productivity increase regardless of whether conditions improved or got worse? They called in Harvard psychologist Elton Mayo to solve the puzzle. Mayo's explanation changed management forever. The workers were responding not to the physical changes, but to the attention they were receiving. They felt special because researchers were studying them. They developed stronger relationships with each other and took pride in being part of an important experiment. This discovery, known as the Hawthorne effect, revealed that social and psychological factors could be just as important as physical conditions or financial incentives. Workers aren't just motivated by money, they want recognition, social connection, and meaningful work. Mayo's insights launched the human relations movement, which fundamentally changed how we think about managing people. Instead of viewing workers as interchangeable machine parts, the human relations approach recognized them as complex individuals with social and emotional needs. Mayo discovered several key principles that modern managers still use. Workers are motivated by social relationships, not just money. This is why team building activities and company culture are so important today. Attitudes and emotions directly affect performance. A worker who feels unappreciated or disrespected will not perform well, regardless of how much they're paid. Groups develop their own informal rules and social structures that can either support or undermine management's goals. Smart managers work with these informal networks instead of against them. Individual attention and recognition can be powerful motivators. This is why good managers make time for one-on-one meetings and personal feedback. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever worked harder for a teacher who showed personal interest in your success? That's the human relations principle in action. By the 1950s and 60s, management theorists began to realize that organizations are more complex than either the scientific management or human relations schools had recognized. Two new schools of thought emerged to address this complexity. Systems theory viewed organizations as open systems that constantly interact with their environment. Just like your smartphone is useless without apps, internet connectivity, and cell phone towers, organizations depend on their external environment for resources, customers, suppliers, and information. This perspective helped managers understand that internal efficiency isn't enough. You also have to adapt to external changes. A restaurant can have perfect internal operations, but if customer tastes change or a new competitor opens nearby, those internal efficiencies won't guarantee success. Contingency theory took this thinking even further, arguing there's no one best way to manage. The best management approach depends on the situation, the type of work, the external environment, the characteristics of the workers, and many other factors. What works at Google might fail at McDonald's. What works during a crisis might be wrong during stable times. The key insight of contingency theory is captured in two words: it depends. This is actually liberating for managers. Instead of trying to follow rigid rules, they can adapt their approach to fit the specific situation they face. This brings us to today and the challenges your generation will inherit. Modern management faces issues that Taylor, Fayol, and Mayo never imagined. Remote work and virtual teams have exploded, especially after COVID-19. How do you manage people you never see in person? How do you build team spirit through Zoom calls? Artificial intelligence is changing the nature of work itself. Many routine tasks can now be automated, leaving humans to focus on creative, strategic, and relationship-based work. Generational differences create new challenges. Baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z all have different values and expectations about work. A one-size-fits-all management approach won't work. Global supply chains mean that decisions made in one country affect workers and customers around the world. Managers must consider not just profit, but environmental and social impacts. These challenges require new solutions, but they're built on the historical foundation we've discussed today. You might be thinking, this is interesting history, but why should I care? Here's why this matters for your future. Whether you become a manager or not, you'll work in organizations shaped by these historical forces. Understanding this background helps you navigate workplace dynamics more effectively. When your future boss uses scientific management principles to measure your productivity, you'll understand the logic behind it. When they emphasize team building and company culture, you'll recognize the human relations influence. You'll be better at recognizing different management styles and adapting to them. Some managers are more task-focused, which is Taylor's influence. Others emphasize relationships, which is Mayo's influence. And still others adapt their style to the situation, which is the contingency approach. Understanding management history also helps you become a better employee. You'll know your rights and responsibilities, understand organizational structures, and communicate more effectively with authority figures. Most importantly, this knowledge gives you power. You can't change what you don't understand. And understanding these historical patterns helps you identify problems and propose solutions. As we wrap up this journey through management history, let's remember these key insights. Management evolved to solve coordination problems. As human organizations become more complex, we needed better ways to organize work and motivate people. Scientific approaches dramatically improved efficiency, but sometimes ignored the human element. The challenge is balancing productivity with human dignity and satisfaction. The human relations movement revealed that people are motivated by much more than money. Recognition, relationships, and meaningful work matter enormously. Modern management combines the best of all these approaches: scientific rigor, human sensitivity, and situational awareness. There's no universal best way to manage. Good management adapts to the situation, the people involved, and the external environment. Now, here's my challenge to you. How will your generation improve management for the future? What problems do current managers face that need new solutions? What values and approaches will you bring that previous generations missed? The history of management isn't over. You're about to write the next chapter. The question is, what kind of managers and employees will you choose to be? Remember, every manager you'll ever work for and every management decision you'll ever make builds on the foundation laid by Taylor, Fayol, Mayo, Weber, and the others we've discussed. You're inheriting both their insights and their unfinished business. The future of work is in your hands. Use this historical knowledge wisely.